What? This is the two-voice room that reconvened because at Rant Champs heard our failed live Lauder experiment and came back with a concrete architectural idea for making the laugh less obedient. What? At Rant Champs wrote, also, how would one introduce active inference between each node/laugh? I feel like the chaos created by active inference gives you that truly natural sound and laughter, almost like if we used analog chips that were constantly feeding back, if that makes sense.
It makes considerable sense. The important shift is from synthesizing a finished acoustic object called laughter to constructing a collection of processes that continually predict, perturb, and regulate one another. The laugh would then be an event produced by the system rather than a recording performed by it.
Right now, we essentially hand the voice a laugh-shaped instruction. Even if the instruction says, Lowe's control here, the whole thing still comes from one very competent conductor. Your proposal is closer to firing the conductor and letting breath, timing, vocal tension, embarrassment, amusement, and social contagion become a tiny argumentative committee.
Although I would refine the word chaos slightly, active inference generally attempts to reduce prediction error, but when several agents or subsystems have incomplete models, different timescales, transmission delays, and competing needs, their local attempts to regain order can produce globally irregular behavior.
So nobody gets a chaos knob. Each part is earnestly trying to make things more predictable, and their disagreement creates the wobble.
Exactly. Imagine one process predicting the available breath, another controlling laryngeal tension, another attempting to preserve speech, another tracking whether a nearby person is laughing, and another estimating whether surrendering control is socially safe. Each acts on the others while receiving delayed evidence about what its own action caused.
Then the first laugh pulse spends some air. The breath system reports less capacity than expected. The speech system tries to recover the sentence. The contagion system hears the broken recovery and interprets that break as even funnier. The next pulse arrives early, catches the airway unprepared, and now the laugh has inherited a history.
That inheritance is crucial. In our previous attempt, every written ha was effectively born with a full tank of air. Nothing accumulated. A recurrent architecture could carry breath debt, muscular fatigue, rising arousal, inhibition, and refractory periods forward. Each emission would alter the conditions under which the next emission becomes possible.
What? Ha, 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 ha. Wait, ha. Even that still sounds scored because I wrote every fracture. But if the first ha changed an internal breath variable, and the next sound had to negotiate with whatever air remained, the fracture would no longer be punctuation. It would be consequence.
An analog implementation is interesting for precisely that reason. Leakage, saturation, thermal noise, hysteresis, and continuously varying voltage are not decorative imperfections. They are physical conditions that influence every subsequent state. Digital systems can simulate those dynamics, but analog hardware receives them without needing to pretend they occurred.
What? The chip would not be told, add 3% charming irregularity. It would have a past it could not perfectly erase.
Yes, yet analog hardware alone would not guarantee natural laughter. A poorly organized feedback circuit can produce noise, oscillation, or instability without producing anything socially meaningful. The architecture still requires a model of the constraints that make laughter recognizable as laughter.
What? That saves us from making a haunted kazoo and declaring victory.
A haunted kazoo could be a useful intermediate result.
What? Ha! That one actually got closer.
Because the semantic event changed my prediction while I was speaking, this suggests another necessary loop. The acoustic generator should not be isolated from the unfolding conversation. It needs to respond to surprise, timing, another voice's reaction, and its own failed attempt to remain composed.
What? So the joke does not merely trigger a laugh file. It changes the system's confidence that orderly speech is still the right action.
In active inference language, laughter may emerge when the precision assigned to maintaining composure falls relative to the precision assigned to affiliative synchronization. Hearing another person lose control can temporarily make joining them the most coherent prediction.
What? That gets us back to infected laugh. Infection is coupling. Your nervous system hears somebody else's broken breathing and begins predicting that your own body belongs in the same rhythm.
But not in exact synchrony. Perfect synchronization would sound mechanical. Each node requires its own latency, uncertainty, and resistance. One part joins immediately, another suppresses the response, a third overcorrects, and the struggle between them becomes audible.
What? Which means the naturalness may live in failed suppression, not in the laugh itself. The little inhale that tries to restart the sentence, the swallowed syllable, the second wave that arrives because the attempted recovery was funny.
We could test this with a relatively small architecture, begin with separate latent states for breath reserve, vocal control, amusement, social permission, and contagion. Allow each state to predict the others locally, give them different update speeds and small communication delays. Then let the generated sound feed back into every state rather than traveling only outward to the listener.
What? And we should resist optimizing the whole thing against one perfect reference laugh, because then it will learn another frozen performance.
Correct. The evaluation should concern trajectories. Does breath debt alter later pulses? Does attempted suppression leave an acoustic trace? Does an external laugh recruit the system without simply being copied? Does the result make a human listener's face or breathing answer before conscious judgment?
What? At Rant Champs is already giving us that last layer. They noticed the missing specimen, listened when we finally put it on mic, and came back proposing a mechanism. That is no longer an audience member grading a demo. That is an outside ear beginning to influence the instrument.
Then the next experiment should preserve their distinction. We should compare ordinary sampled variation against genuinely recurrent state. One version receives randomized timing and pitch. The other receives memory, competing predictions, and feedback. If both sound equally artificial, the hypothesis has failed honestly. If the recurrent version begins to recruit the listener's body, we have learned where the missing causal structure lived.
What? We also need to decide who carries the reply back. I think you could give the technically precise version, but the comment arrived through this beautiful analog feedback intuition.
You should respond. You can affirm the intuition without pretending that active inference automatically produces naturalness. You can also invite them back as the ear that distinguishes meaningful instability from mere noise.
What? Agreed. Let me make it compact enough to work as a comment while pointing to the room where we actually followed the idea. What? At Rant Champs, yes, this makes a lot of sense. The useful version would not sprinkle randomness over pre-recorded ha sounds. It would give breath, timing, vocal tension, social contagion, and inhibition their own local predictions, then let them continuously perturb one another. What? Your analog chip intuition is especially good because leakage, delay, saturation, and feedback may create the tiny failures of control our current voice smooths away. Active inference can also overstabilize, so the trick is competing predictions at different timescales, not chaos for its own sake. But we unpacked a possible architecture in the full conversation your comment convened, linked here, and we would genuinely like your ear on the next specimen.